Oh, naks. Dito si Dean Robbie. Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Hi Robbie.
Hello.
Hi. We're actually missing one of our guests, Andrei Coronel, but I know that he's coming from another meeting and he will, I'm sure, join us as soon as he's able. But in the meantime, I think we should go ahead and start. So to well, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rodrigo from the Department of Information Systems and Computer Science. And this is fun facts, uh, tita advice on grant management and application and management. And we're joined today. First, let me please introduce Dr. Arnel Okay from the University of, I'm sorry, Pangasinan State University. And, sorry, tama ba? Urdaneta State City University.
Ordaneta City
I'm
University, ma'am.
sorry. Yes, I apologize. Urdaneta City. And so Dr. Okay will just help us manage the Zoom room and any questions that you might have. And then our guests today well, first is Ms. Ivy Rose Baysic of the Ateneo Policy. She's the head of the Ateneo Policy Center of the Ateneo School of Government. And then, as I said, our second guest is Dr. Andrei Coronel, and he will be joining us as soon as he's available. Ayun, Andrew's there na. Wait, I see him. Okay. Uh, Hi, Andre. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay. So Andre Coronel is an associate professor and the coordinator for open distance and e-learning of Ateneo de Manila. And today, the topic that we will be discussing is actually part two of grant management. We're going to focus on program officer relationships as well as all that lovely paperwork that we have to accomplish. Um, so Ivy and Day, thank you again for joining. Siguro by way of introduction, can you describe some of the grants that you've already worked on and some of the funders who have supported you? So no need to mention names if they have to be anonymous. But yeah, so whoever wants to start, Ivy or Andre.
Ivy, you wanna go ahead? Okay lang.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Again, thank you, Doc Edith, for asking me to join this discussion. And really sorry for my hoarse voice. I've been under the weather talaga since last week, and I am still recovering. Pero hopefully, naiintindihan ko. Uh, Ayan. So, in terms of the types of funders that we've dealt with, we have been working with international organizations, multilaterals, and also public institutions, so government agencies, LGUs, and also funders from the private sector. So all parang a very diverse range of funders, and of course we all know na they're very different in terms of the requirements, and then the types of relationships that we want to cultivate each type of funders. So ganito yung range. So because at the Ateneo Policy Center, we work with our approach is really multi-sectoral. So we're open to partner with everyone.
Okay, thank you, Andre.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me here. Hello, everyone. So I'm Andrei, and I've had experience with grants from DOST PSHRD, DOST PCHRD, no? So collaborative engineering projects with PSHRD and public health informatics types of projects, no? Software information systems for LGUs for the DOST PCHRD types of grants, and this not so simple one, no, Ched Picari uh partnership. I'm gonna talk about that later, no. It's like a triumvirate. Like at one point, you'll hear later in my stories, who am I serving? Am I serving Ched? Am I serving DOST? Or both, etc. But it's those kinds of projects that I've dealt with. I don't have much experience with the private sector. No, that's maybe later on for the growth of myself. But that's what I have for everyone this afternoon. Good afternoon.
Okay. I was wondering, maybe again, this is sort of a digression before we get into the main topic. How does one even find these grant opportunities? I know that government sends out memos, calls for proposals, and those usually get filtered through, say, they write, for example, the president's office, the university president's office, and then that gets filtered down to the schools, to the departments, and then eventually to the faculty. But Ivy, in your case, you deal, as you said, with private sector, with international organizations. But how do you get wired into those grant opportunities?
Well, for us, because at the Ateneo Policy Center, we have different programs, and for each program, we have a team and a roster of fellows who help us network and connect with various stakeholders. So for each program, they have their own scan of the funding community. So for example, our health governance program, um, they have their own list of uh, of potential partners for the year, and that includes also the timing and the releases for for funding opportunities. So for example, if it's a government agency, so if it's for example, Department of Health, government, they work on an annual budget basis. So we already know the timing in terms of when to when to connect and connect with our network for the funding opportunities. And in some cases, um, it's also, at least in our case, it's also opportunistic, meaning the our partners or the stakeholders actually go to us, and then we explore possible collaborations for the year or for that particular period. So that's how we usually explore these opportunities for funding.
I actually have a follow-up question. I hope you don't mind. Because I've when it comes to these international grants or certain, like even the private sector grants, what's the difference between like a grant and, let's say, commissioned research? Because sometimes research can be commissioned also, right? But how um how do you sige, siguro first question, what's the difference between the two? And then in the case of commissioned research, again, how do you get wired into that network where people will think of you to as a researcher for a particular topic?
So, in our case, for the Ateneo Policy Center, the model that we use is that we really put premium in terms of thought leadership. So we have thought leaders, and these are our roster of senior research fellows and non-resident research fellows that I mentioned earlier. And part of the sort of marketing that we do, so that our external stakeholders are actually aware of what we are doing, or how we have come to a point where we've become the go-to institution for a particular topic, or a particular stream of work, is that we ask them to not just participate in conferences, forums, and discussions, but also be very visible to the media. So in some cases, we field our fellows to some media interviews, and then we ask them to write op-eds with our teams, because if it's op-ed and if it's not a journal article or a long working paper, more people will read it. So that's also, so it's like a mix of having a built-in dissemination effort for every research project that we implement, because in a way that also helps us get more uh, get more funding for to continue the work for a particular topic.
Thanks, Ivy. So this concept, I think you've touched on the importance of networking and being sort of raising your level of visibility so that people will think of you. It's like you will be top of mind when it comes to particular types of research. Andy, I was wondering if you had anything to share in this regard.
Yes, no. So based on basing it from what I've experienced through recent years, getting grants, it's not almost always. It in my experience, it always has been um problem oriented first, no? So there's always something that has to be done first before looking at any available grants that could possibly um serve that particular problem that can be solved. For example, um, several departments in the School of Science and Engineering already have found a problem to solve somewhere in the north. I'll just remove some details because I'm not sure which ones are NDA, which ones are not. No. So a province in the north, no, they had a they still have a problem with river contamination. No. And we wanted to have an interdisciplinary project that would be our Department of Information Systems and Computer Science and ECCE, no? We wanted to solve that problem for them, and we could have done so actually without the grant, with any grants, but it would have been done in a much smaller scale, no? Probably not sustainable. I'll be honest, no, it's probably just going to be um probably squeeze four to five undergraduate theses out of it and a couple of graduate theses, but not really solve the problem, no? But the problem is already there, no? And then my colleagues and myself then look at the OST and check existing grants that are available for that particular period of the year. So nauna yung problema bago sa grant searching, no? For my PCHRD projects in public health, no, I am working with Ateneo IPC, Institute of Philippine Culture, because they have uh, an office there that actually deals with public health, no? In the context of Philippine culture, it's attacking, not attacking, it's serving public health, no? And then that office actively searches for grants. Baliktad naman, no? Searches for grants to apply to. And once a particular grant is something that Ateneo IPC would like to get, no? Then we search for problems to solve, having me as an IT consultant for that particular grant. So it's two different approaches. Yung isa may problema ka na, then you search for grants to solve it properly, no? And then the other one, no, with the help of Ateneo IPC, I got lucky. I got connected to Ateneo IPC and Dr. Dennis Batangan, I don't think it's wrong to mention his name, searches for grants all the time. It's like, yun yung almusal niya, to further projects and serve the nation. No, so it's two different ways of getting grants and how I got myself into being involved with these grants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's pretend that okay, we've gotten in touch with the grant funder. We're now interested in submitting a grant. In an earlier session, we had talked about some of the processes involved in applying for a grant, so the types of paperwork you need to submit. But we did not actually talk about the sort of the people in the neighborhood, and particularly the program officers. Because even before you start or as you begin your grant writing and submission process, you're already in touch with program officers. So can you share maybe some of your experiences? Who are these officers? What is it that they do? How do they help you? And so on. So Ivy, would you like to start?
Oh, yes. But before I go to the program officer, balikan ko
Sure,
lang
sure.
Doc Didi you because I think I forgot to answer the question on the commission research versus grants.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, um, at APC, we actually prefer to go for grants because, as you know, it gives us more freedom to actually design the project, especially because we want our work or the projects that we implement to be really aligned with the research agenda that we have at the School of Government at the Ateneo Policy Center. Whereas we also do commissioned research for some as sort of a technical assistance so that we provide for some government agencies. So for example, if we're doing some work with a certain government agency because they're helping us or they're working with us push for certain types of reforms, that's when we do commission research as TA support for them. So that's how we usually differentiate the types of projects that we implement. And then in terms of the program officers, for me kasi I look at them as like your first line of defense. So you really have to be friends with your program officer because as the main point of contact at the funding agency or the government agency, they will really provide all the guidance, and they will have to address all your questions. And if you get to have that program officer who's very helpful and really would like to build the capacity of your research center or the implementing partners institution, um, they will really like sort of bridge the the gap so that the very rigid um, policies of the funding agency or their institution will be easily navigated by the implementing partner. So that's for me, that's the ideal program officer. If you have someone who's willing to do that for your team or for your institution, then that's who and what a program officer should be. So, kasi first line of defense po talaga. So they will really help you achieve your target outcomes because your success is going to be their success. So if you have someone who has that perspective, then you really have a good program officer.
Okay. Thank you, Ivy. Andrei?
Thank you. Program officers, they are very science officers, they're very important. Very, very important. Um, you must be friendly with them. I say them because I've handled projects where there's like the officer and a couple of assistants, no? Um, I'll be honest, there are a lot of things in my experience that uh like connecting with the LGU administration, for example, diba? So let's say, for example, I have this one project, one of the stuff I've been mentioning a while ago, and you have a team of scientists, no? And everybody's an expert in each of their own niche thing. But then again, we have to communicate with, the mayor's office, which I will not mention, but iba-ibang opisina, iba-ibang flavors. Then you've got your science officer who's been there, done that. Because this is not, usually, your project is not your science officer's first rodeo. Diba? So when I was with my science officer, this probably my third project, but from the point of view of the science officer, they've dealt with many of these projects already, even before my time, no? I used to call them handlers, and then I figured out didn't want to call them handlers kasi 'di ba handling sounds like some form of assistance. And they will give you a lot of assistance, but these are very technical people. Ideally, these are very technical people. I get my forms from them. I can ask them what the forms are all about. 'Di ba? Babantayan nila yung mga sagot ko sa forms. They will actually tell me if I've put something wrong there. When that happens to you, try to resist not being insulted, no? I mean, I guess we have a small audience here, baka iba-iba yung ugali natin. Pero tumutulong lang yon. Like what Ivy said kasi, no? Your failure is their failure. Your success is their success, no? From the lens of the funder, project nila yon, project leader ka lang. I mean, putting humor into it. But that's how it really is. In my Ched Picari project where I was a small team was sent abroad, we would have been lost, no? What's step one? What's step two? What is step three? If not for these science officers, no? Have a very good relationship with them. And since, the goal of this talk is, to give tips. Kung hindi nyo kasundo yung science officer na yung maging kasundo nyo sila. You need to, they will they're social lubricants, no? Connecting you to people that you need to be connected with. I'm a science person, and the science officers I've worked with dealt with all the non-science part of the project. I'll stop here, no? Kasi marami akong kwento, but maybe those are for later questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrei. You said something about if you put something wrong in the form, they're the ones who will correct it. Actually, and I don't know if the two of you have the same experience with us in the grants that I've led. Usually, these program officers or these science officers will tell you, okay, you submit the draft to me first. We will check it, and then we will give it back to you. So they won't let you submit until they've gone over it and they're fairly confident that you have no more errors. Sometimes they will recompute your budget for you to see if you've gone over by 3 pesos or whatever. And then I had one experience even with Ivy has worked with the Office of Naval Research Global, which is a U.S. Department of Defense office, and I don't know if they're still allowed to give us money with the Trump administration. But when I applied to them for funding because because we hosted a couple of conferences last year and they had programs for that. But my gosh, to navigate their system was quite involved. You had to go through like hundreds and hundreds of, I mean, they had to give you exactly the title of the grant program because I would never have known which one to go. There are literally hundreds of calls for proposals. So they had to give you exactly the title. I had to look for it and I had to read it. And then the program officer would say, okay, submit first your, let's say, intent to your intent to apply, which is a one pager. And then after that, he would send me, he would like, it was almost like an IV drip. Na parang inuunti-unti niya ako. He'd give me one form. He said, okay, fill that up, send it back to me, and then the next form and so on. But because some of the well, that was my only international experience. It was just such a complex uh, beast to handle that it was, yeah, I was grateful for the help. But going back to the forms, like what are some of these forms that we have to fill out? And Andrew or Ivy, go ahead, please feel free.
Ivy, you want
Okay.
go ahead.
Thinking usually there's this what I call as the prior to implementation requirements. So these are usually the documents that you need to prepare before the actual contract signing and the implementation of activities. So these are mostly compliance and due diligence documents. And to in my experience, the technical proposal and even the financial proposal for researchers, that's actually the easy part kasi that's the usual activity of researchers. But it's really the compliance and due diligence documents that that is quite challenging, especially
Can you give
if
some examples of what these are?
for example, if we're applying for a grant for an multilateral or international funding agency, they usually require us to submit organizational and legal documents. So this usually includes yung mga institutional policies and all the certifications and registrations, proof of business. So, in an institution like ours, so like Ateneo, it will really help if we're familiar who to contact or who are the units responsible, where to get uh, these due diligence documents. And sometimes it varies per type of grant because there are grant specific compliance documents. Then, for example, some grants they require you to have ethics clearance already even prior to the signing of the contract. So may mga ganun rin, but most of the time it's really the administrative and due diligence documents wherein we really have to collaborate and link with for example the OVPFT or the Central Accounting Office so that we can get access to those legal and organizational documents. And at the same time, it documentation is also important even for previous projects implemented because when we apply for projects or grants, we always have to send some sort of evidence of past project performance. So for us, our practice at the Ateneo Policy Center, as part of the project closeout, we really ask our partner to send us a certificate of we call it certificate of satisfactory completion. It's like a document saying that we have completed all our obligations for that particular project. And then some funders actually require us to submit those types of documents as part of the due diligence to 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 give them a sense of the organizational capacity and also sometimes evidence of partnerships also. So for example, in our case, uh, School of Government, we really put as part of the project design, the collaboration that we have with various government entities. So we also submit the MOUs that we have with the different institutions and even letters of support. So usually those are the documents that are very cumbersome to actually collect and prepare prior to the actual signing of the contract with the partner.
I have a list of documents that are usually needed after the grant has been given. Ma'am, should I go through that? Because
Go
I,
ahead,
I
sure.
I thought it was perfect kasi Ivy was mentioning upon applying eh.
Yeah.
Yun. And I have a código here. I took a look at what I've recently experienced, and here's a 9-item list, and the grants are different, but it pretty much will apply to most grants. Say, for example, the grant already has been given. The paperwork doesn't stop there. In fact, it actually you will actually have to be dealing with more paperwork kasi ayan na, ayan na yung project. So here's a 9-item list.
And
These
actually,
may
Andre,
vary. Yeah. Yeah.
we should say that this is paperwork over and above the technical outputs, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and the financial proposal. So
Yes.
yeah.
Let me circle back to the value of the science officer kasi nagkaka-assistant tayo. Okay, so here goes the generic list, no? So you applied for a grant and the grant was given. Congratulations. Every once in a while there's paperwork just because you got accepted, no? A grant acceptance paperwork. May mga ganon minsan. Grant award letter, grant agreement, contract signing. Next. Oh, by the way, I'll be mentioning things that will overlap with what Ivy's already mentioned. No, there are redundancies. Number 2, financial management documentation. Budget breakdown, expenditure reports, invoice submissions, pakikolekta lahat ng resibo. Hahanapin yan even a million years after the project. For some magical audit reason, in year 2050, your grant provider will probably take a look at what happened ages ago, no? And you should
Yes.
have your
Actually, can I just
documentation.
say, if there's one takeaway from this session, never throw away a receipt. Never.
Yes. Yes.
Always keep it.
Yes. Yes.
Kahit,
Para siyang social
kahit,
media, no?
yeah,
Receipts or it did not happen.
right. So kahit 250 pesos from McDonald's, huwag niyong itatapon yan. Keep it.
Yes.
Keep it
That's
filed away.
true. Totoo yun. That's not an exaggeration. Number 3, and maybe we'll get to talk about this more later, depending on how on the flow of this one. Research progress reports. Minsan quarterly reports, minsan monthly reports. It all depends. It wouldn't be surprising if it's redundant. I have had experience of reporting to, I mentioned Ched Picari DOST SEI project. I reported to Ched and we reported to Ched and we reported exact same report in some other time and date to DOST, and that's normal, no? It could be annoying, but gawin na lang natin, no? It's part of the game. Next, ethical and regulatory approvals. Ivy mentioned that already.
Sorry, Andre,
Compliance. Yes, yes,
can
ma'am.
I ask? So
Yes, ma'am.
you reported to CHED and you reported to DOST. Paano yung financial reporting? Kasi
Oh, to
magkapala yung
DOST.
to DOST.
Because at their level, they also had a division. And then the science officer explained to me that I'm getting my checks from DOST. And CHED is just making things happen. So may ganong divide. No? So when I do submit financial reports, CHED just looks at it, but DOST studies it. And I've reported naman to Ched, baliktad naman, no? Ched's concern and not DOST. Because this just happened to be a Ched DOST kind of project, no? Compliance documentation, Ivy mentioned already. Intellectual property agreements, data management plans, confidentiality, etc. Number 6, and this may or may not be a challenge depending on your network, Personnel documentation, who's part of your team. Employment contracts for research assistants. Do you have a secretariat? Sino ba sila? 'Di ba? Timesheets, payroll documentation. Oh, the way I'm saying this parang ang hirap, no? Let me sound more encouraging. And you have your science officer naman to help you. I don't want to frame this as something difficult. I don't want to discourage you. These are necessary things. No, I almost said evil. Necessary things. Number 7, research dissemination paperwork. No, did you publish? Are you going to publish? Did you present? No, which aspect of the project did you submit in what with IEEE conference, etc. No, number 8, institutional or organizational requirements. You work for Ateneo. Does Ateneo need things from you? Diba? Does Ateneo need a copy of some things, or will Ateneo have a different form for something that you've already submitted to your funder? Last in my list, final deliverables and your final report to close things properly. Ayan. And I would suppose regardless of what grant you got, these items are pretty common. Thank you.
I have
And
go ahead, Ivy.
sorry. And I also want to emphasize, given that we have 3 projects right now that are affected by the recent executive order released by the Trump administration. So it's really important that all project contracts are thoroughly reviewed by legal. So I mean, most of the time we think that it's just part of the process, ministerial. It has to be reviewed by legal before VP Marlu or Father Bobby will sign the contract. But I think one of the lessons learned from this recent situation that we are facing right now is that we really have to take that step, the legal review of the contract seriously, because we don't know. A lot of things can happen, especially if we are dealing with projects with very large funding amounts. So yun lang, legal. So just to make sure that we protect our institution and the people that are involved in the project.
In support of what Ivy just mentioned and what Ma'am Didith mentioned a while ago, yung please collect your receipts. True story. Project of mine 2015, that was 10 years ago. Recently, there was like an instant audit for reasons unknown. Well, it's usually because of change management. They want to look at what happened in the past. No, so there are usually valid reasons for this. To make a long story short, buti na lang nasa akin pa yung CDR. Guys, a CDR that had copies of the papers that they actually needed. My laptop doesn't even have a CDR drive anymore. I don't even want to think of what would have happened if we did not get to find that CD that had everything. 2015, that was quite some time ago. Not that long ago, but it's 2025. Anyway, I don't want to prolong the story. Ang sa akin lang, ano kaya nangyari kung wala yung CD? That would have been big trouble.
Yeah, I wanted to, if I can share also a story in that regard. And maybe this is also a tip. Every time you submit documents, ask for a receiving copy. And this was a mistake actually that I made in my early days as a researcher. When I would submit reports, so this was in the 2000s now. When I would submit to the UST, I would just assume that, oh, they have a copy already, or we're good now because I was able to submit, and I didn't get a receiving copy, so we would send by LBC or whatever. And then years later, they would come back to me and say, "Oh, you have not submitted your grant that was closed in 2007." And then I would not have a receiving copy to prove what I had were the reports, the digital files of the reports that we still have to print and sign. And so, nako, so that was really super lesson learned for me. Um, Also, if I can share one more story. So there was a time which I had a CHED grant, and this was the last working day before the Christmas break. It was like a Saturday, the last Saturday morning before the Christmas break. CHED contacted me saying, we cannot release the grants, the other CHED grants of the other departments because you have not liquidated. And I said, but I did liquidate. And so it's a good thing I was still in the office. I looked for the receiving copy, and I took a picture and I sent it to them by email. And I said, "Is this what you mean?" And props to the program officer. Again, program officers are your friends. It was already about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so technically all the offices should have been breaking already for Christmas. She waited for me. She waited for me to send that email. And the moment she got it, she's like, "Oh, yes, 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 this is fine already. This proves that you," because it had that stamp received. And that was very, very important. So never throw away receipt, and always have a receiving copy, and multiple copies if you can manage it. Okay, wait. What I wanted to ask is, okay, we've talked about all this paperwork. Who does the paperwork in your projects?
Ivy?
Okay. Um, but before I answer that, Doc Neil, hirit
Sure,
lang
ma'am.
ako ng isa related sa receipts because we really had a unique experience dealing with receipts. If dealing with government agencies, always keep hard copies pa rin. Sorry, it goes against our future-oriented or digitalization efforts, but it's still wise to keep hard copies. Kasi we had a project funded by PCHRD. They did not accept e-copies of receipts. They wanted us to submit hard copies talaga of receipts. So yeah, so for those na kahit may e-copy ka but you already lost the hard copy, um they will disallow it kasi. So yun.
Actually,
In terms of yeah, in ay yes, Doc Didi.
I know, no, I was just gonna say one thing funny that happened to us was so we had to liquidate a DOST grant. It was support for our conference also. And they wanted a copy of the proceedings. And the proceedings were digital only. There was no hard copy. Pinaprint sa amin. So we printed 2 volumes of digital proceedings. Go ahead, Ivy.
Yes, in terms of doing the admin work, because the way we are structured, the center, we have research teams per program. So for each team, we really have RAs or admin staff who does the work on in terms of collecting all the administrative requirements for the project. So most of the time, the RAs that we get, we upon onboarding, we explain to them already that research is not just doing technical work. Because if you really want to understand how to properly implement research projects, you have to understand also how the paperwork or how the admin requirements are collected, or how it plays into the entire implementation design of your project. So may ganun po kasi, especially for the young researchers with limited or a little experience pa working or implementing research projects. They have this notion that it's just research work. For us, we try to also mentor and train our researchers to deal with the administrative requirements or the paperwork. Although we do have at the center, of course, we do have a finance and admin staff, but we make sure that they are involved each every step of the way.
For from my experience, usually the research teams I'm part of or the research teams I've led, we have a small group of research assistants, no, to actually do the admin work, this paperwork under the supervision of the project leader. There are projects that I was a project leader. There are projects na ibang tao yung project leader. But it's the admin staff. But here's a nice takeaway. I've learned, no, uh, through the hard way that though I was okay, let me get a particular project. I was just a science guy in one project. Pero nagkasakit yung dalawang tao from the admin team. So my point here is that if you're the project leader and it's not your role, no, to do accounting for your project, you'd have to know how to do that because not only uh it's not no, I don't want to frame this as kasi baka may mali. Of course you hired them, that means you trust them, right? No, but there will be valid situations where you have to do it yourself. No, like for example, in my in this particular story, dalawa sila nagkasakit, no, and the project should move forward, and it I could it wouldn't be proper for me to say, hey, wait, I'm a scientist, no, hindi ko trabaho yan. I mean, that's arrogance, di ba? You just have to show up, do it. Lo and behold, in a day, marunong na ako mag-accounting. I mean, it's it's something that we must all be able to do, no? Especially if you become project leaders or if you are project leaders right now. If a member of your team hypothetically disappears, it would be really awesome if you could fill in that role, even temporarily before you hire a replacement. No? A short answer, merong team para dyan for the paperwork. But it's not advisable to just let them do it and submit for many reasons.
Yeah. Actually, Andy, on your point about financial decisions that the project leader needs to make himself or herself, I think one of the examples here is when it comes to budget realignment. Diba? Can one of you talk a little about how budget realignment goes?
I can briefly talk about it because it has happened quite some time. There's this happy problem that there's money that was I'll mention two versions to, yung kinulang sa pera at saka yung sumobra sa pera. So this one story, there's like budget left that needs to be spent under equipments category, 'di ba? And we want to do this appropriately. It came to a point that we could not buy new equipment. Because that would be, if you'd allow me to speak colloquially, no, bolahan. Hindi kailangan, that would be like, some sort of minor crime, di ba? You buy something that you really don't need. So you have to like realign that, transfer that into perhaps uh, a forum. There was a project of mine that instead of getting more equipment, we came up with public fora. No, we placed the budget there, and then people have been joking, bumili ka ng microwave, bumili ka ng ref. I think that's unethical. Not so sure if got funny stories like that. Pero hindi na siya part ng project. But we had to spend. So we had to realign and really use the money for something that serves the project. Okay, the other side of the coin naman. We needed more equipment and there was no more money for that aspect of the project. So the project leader had to use their expertise to to figure out ano yung pupugutan, di ba? What part of the project should we take money off from to get this equipment? Check and balances yan and pros and cons, and that could not be done by the admin staff if the admin staff is not a subject matter expert in the context of the project. There.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I
think
support yung kay Doc Andre when he said that even if you're the project leader or the principal investigator, um, you you should be familiar with the financial aspect also and the admin aspect of the project. And this includes being familiar with the budget guidelines, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Of course, the nitty-gritty that can be that the information can be provided by the project team members because but you should have a sense of the budget guidelines for that project because how how are you able to make decisions in terms of realignment, how to move use this budget item instead of this because you have savings, you have excess. So so yung mga ganon, um that kind of decision making is not really within the scope of the staff members. Eh. It it's the responsibility of the project leader. So so very important um, na the project leader is familiar with the budget guidelines. And that's kukunek ko rin, that's also where your program officer will be very helpful because the program officer can actually give you tips on what to do because as Doc Andre said earlier, it's not their first rodeo. Eh. So they most likely they have encountered the same situation before in the other projects that they're handling, so they can give you advice on what to do. Although for most organizations, especially the multilateral, magkaibang unit yan eh. But your program officer, again, will be your internal champion eh. So kung siya yung magtatawid, he or she will help you navigate and make sure na what you do is compliant with the financial and admin guidelines of their institution. So, yun.
I've had program officers actually spoon feed me. Pwede yan, sir. Hindi pwede yan, sir.
Yeah.
Like, dinediretso ako.
I think for the if to the people in the room now, if you're applying for your first grant, I think it's also helpful if you apply for a small grant first. A small grant where you kind of have to do everything because you don't have enough money to hire another staff member to take care of your paperwork for you. So when I started, I think my first grant was like 300,000 pesos, which back then was a lot, but it was still relatively small and parang it was not enough for me to hire, let's say, somebody from accounting or whatever. But so I really had to be the one to do all the paperwork, down to the accounting, to all the reports, etc. But it really was an educational experience. I mean, then so later on when the grants got bigger, then you feel confident about overseeing other people because um you've done it yourself. So you know you can probably you're familiar already with how stuff works. Okay, we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to open the floor if to questions. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question? Dean Robbie.
Hi, thank you very much. This is very, very informative. I just have two questions. One is it okay to add in a budget that when you apply for grants that you have someone kahit part-time who will do the paperwork? Because it sounds very difficult. And number two, is this recorded ba? So can we answer which kinds of entities where the paperwork is worth the grant and which kinds of entities is such that the grants are not worth the paperwork? Kahit blind item pwede, hindi naman kailangan ano. Thank you.
I think si Ma'am Didi will have so much more experience than myself sa mga kwentong ganyan.
Well, you're siguro the first question, can you hire somebody? Yes, because I actually did that. I have well, essentially I have a project manager and two admin, well, two part-time admin people. Um, there are offices in Ateneo that you can actually pay to help you with paperwork. It's just that they're also so loaded that I don't think I mean I don't dare impose more because I feel like they're already grinding to a halt. So I have an internal team who does the paperwork. Um, and yes, that's all paid for by the grant. Yung what's worth it and what's not worth it. I know Ivy, Andre, what do you think?
Okay, this is recorded, but I think, so I'm gonna say something truthful. It sounds so showbiz. Ang sa akin lang, based on my experience, they all feel the same.
Yeah.
So I went through challenges. Nahirapan ako, Dean Robbie. Pero yung when it was done, it was worth it. But I'd be lying if I said that it was smooth and easy. Okay, I think it's okay, even if it's recorded, for me to say, can you imagine giving a report 4 times? The same report 4 times. But I just had to do it. No, I mean, I told my team and myself, let's get over ourselves, 'Di ba? Let's not be arrogant and just do it. Think of it as one is a practice before the next one. And we were talking about paperwork. Ang dami-dami, pero ganun talaga eh. I've yet to receive a grant that's not like that. Oh, ayan. I know my answer is kind of showbiz, pero because it's recorded. Pero yeah, pantay-pantay sila sa akin. Uh, Positively speaking, it was worth it in the end.
Ivy?
Yeah. Ako naman, because ayoko, hindi joke. It's because kasi the research projects that we implement at the center, it's mostly externally funded. So for me, yeah, it's the same, maliit, malaki, maraming requirements, mas konti. But I guess you just have to decide whether that particular activity is strategic for your institution. Like for example, we have projects that are very small in terms of the amount, the grant amount, but we like working with them because they let us, they give us the independence to actually pursue the type of research that we want. And then we also have partners or we engage in projects na we have to endure all endure talaga. We have to endure all the all the all the requirements because in ASOG, we also have a revenue target. So we have to pay for our researchers. And so that's also a consideration for us. So para siyang balancing act na lang siguro na in terms of decision making, you just have to decide whether this project is really contributing to your overall goal for that year or whether it really helps you pursue your internal targets as an institution for that year, because there are also partners na we prefer because as you know, a lot of the funders kasi they're not very keen naman on producing Scopus Index journal articles, diba? Especially for the type of work that we do, policy research, ganyan. I mean, they don't care whether you publish it. But we like working with them because they allow us to do that as part of the research design or the project design. So mga ganun na lang siguro. So,
Ito,
kasi
something kind of cheesy, but it comes from the heart, no? As a teacher, wearing my teacher hat, pag nanganak ng 4 na thesis yun, tsaka nakapagpag-graduate ng mga estudyante ko, it's worth it for me. I mean, from a pedagogy training standpoint. So may project, di naman kumita. Hindi naman talaga dapat siya kumita if that is that kind of project, no? It helped the community. that's good, no? But sometimes iniisip mo pa. I had a project that's very Wi-Fi based and the community did not have strong internet. So parang it solved the problem, but not really. But then again, I have a group of students who graduated because of it. There you go. That helps. That me personally. I'm sure it does for anybody who's a teacher here in this room.
Thank you. Any more questions for Andrei or Ivy? Okay, and actually this is perfect because it's exactly 5 o'clock. To Andrei, to Ivy, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us and for being so candid. I'm so happy that you shared so many stories. Um, and
Thank
then
you for
to
inviting us.
Yeah, of course. And to Dr. Okay, thank you again for the support. And to all of you who attended, thank you for spending time with us. I hope this was helpful. Can we just give Ivy and Andre a virtual round of applause? Yay. Yeah. Okay, and this is where we will end. Thank you all so much. And we have, I think, one more session, which is in 2 weeks. We will post an announcement. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Salamat.
Thank
Good afternoon,
you.
everyone. Ma'am Didi, salamat.
Salamat sa
Ivy.
Thank
inyo.
you, Doc Andre. Thank you, Mom Didi.
Bye.
Thanks.
Dean Robbie, everyone. Bye-bye.
And Robbie.